Welcome, neighbors, to Hope Wanted PDX, where we're exploring the reality that hope is a person. His name is Jesus, and if we learn to place our hope in Jesus, we will never be hopeless again. My name is David, and I get the privilege of serving in the Portland metropolitan area as one of the local pastors. Last week, we began exploring the story of the prodigal son, that Jesus speaks directly to the religious establishment as they complained when he received sinners and ate with tax collectors. So he gives them a series of parables: the lost sheep, the lost coin, and now the lost son, known as the prodigal son. And I said that we would explore from last week to this week, and then the following week on Monday next week, we will explore the idea of the father's heart, the rebellious son's heart, and the older brother's heart. And the way we're going to frame that is the father's humble heart, the younger son's rebellious heart, and the older son's judgmental heart. And so I give a quick summary of the story, and I read a couple key passages, but we're focusing on each of those characters individually, even though they're intertwined. And so this morning, I just want to begin by saying, I remember being 15 years old in Salem, Oregon, on the front lawn, having a tug-of-war match with my good father, who provided well for me and was a kind and loving man. This was in the summer of 1996 when I was 15, and I ripped it from his hands, and I went to the bus stop, and I left home, not because he was an abusive father or because I didn't have my daily bread, but because I was rebellious in my heart. So this story rings true to me on a personal as well as theological level. And so I'm just going to frame it for us, listener, that the rebellious heart, which we're highlighting today, really has to wrestle with two ideas. Either one, I don't want or need God, or two, have I gone too far to come back to God? And so if you're listening today and either you know somebody or you yourself are still in the throes of rebelling against God, we're going to explore this story of the prodigal son, and you're thinking maybe along those two lines. I'm still in the throes of rebellion. I'm still pursuing my independence from God. I still want his gifts, but I don't want him, or I don't need him. Or I've found the end of myself and my pleasure, but I'm not sure he'll accept me back. So let's emphasize the reality. Let's answer those questions as we go through the story of the prodigal son. It is found in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, verses 11 and following. Again, in our standard form, I'm not going to be reading the entirety of the parable, but highlighting some key verses. And so the first verse opens up, and he said, "There was a man who had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me.'" And so we're emphasizing the rebellious son, or the rebellious heart attitude, which is, give me money. Give me the goods. I don't want you. That would have been a highly disrespectful and offensive thing, because that would have been the inheritance upon his father's death. So he's basically saying, Dad, I don't care about you. As a matter of fact, I wish you were dead. I just want the money. So a part of the heart attitude of the rebellious person is they want the goods from God, but not his goodness. His goodness is connected to his person, in a relationship with him. Goods are just the sun, the money, the health. Just give me my money and leave me alone. Secondly, not reading it word for word, but once he gets the money, because his father, as we described last week, was humble of heart and gracious of character and extended what the son didn't deserve, and let him explore his own independence, even though it was going to be ruinous. And God does that to you and I. So he gets the money, and the second thing he says is, by action, is give me my freedom. So he charts his course, and he finds a distant land far away. Now he's got the money. He wants to find his independence and his identity as far away from his father as possible. Maybe that's you today, dear neighbor. Maybe you have been searching high and low to find your identity in everything and anything except for the one who made you and loves you. So you're living in that rebellious posture. Give me the goods and give me my freedom or my independence from you. Lastly, once he gets to that far and distant land, he lives a waste. That's what prodigal means, is wasteful living. He just spends it all on reckless living, the Bible says in Luke 15. And maybe that's you. Maybe you've enjoyed sowing your wild oats, is a phrase we've used in our culture. You've pursued your pleasure. And so basically you've lived with a heart of give me my money, give me my freedom, and give me my pleasure. That's been kind of your bent as you've journeyed through this thing called life. But then the story changes because as we know, the money doesn't last forever. And the friends that you buy with that money, they don't stick around when the money's gone. So this rebellious son experiences a time he actually finds lack. He finds desperation. He finds insufficient funds. He's no longer able to provide for himself with this reckless living. So he wanted, give me the money, give me freedom, and give me pleasure. He found lack, and then he finds constraint. And isn't it true, if you're honest with yourself, if you've been living in rebellion against God, that you've pursued freedom and independence from your Creator, but you've only found limitation, a restlessness in your soul, a dissatisfaction in the quiet of the night, things that you were hoping to fulfill you and to accomplish things that would bring you to your fullest best self have still left you disappointed. That's the premise of this YouTube channel. Hope is a person, and his name is Jesus. And if you learn to place your hope in Jesus, you will never be hopeless again. The idea is we put hope in other pursuits and other things, and our hopes are disappointed or even destroyed. And so he finds his hope in his own ability to fulfill himself destroyed. And then he finds himself as a Jewish man in a pig pen. For you and I, who might be Westerners and not thinking about kind of Jewish culture, that may or may not strike a chord with you. But I would just imagine, just think about living amongst the honey buckets. And you know that's a euphemism for the porta potties. Just thinking about the indignity of living somewhere where you would not ever dare to trod. That would be likened to where he is. For the Jews, pigs were unclean, both kind of in a dietary way and in a theological, spiritual way. And now he's eating the slop that the pigs eat because he's so in need. So he's found himself in shameful misery. So give me the money, give me the freedom, and give me the pleasure turned into finding lack, finding constraint, and finding shame and misery. Then the story switches again and pivots, and it says, but when he came to himself, other translations say, when he came to his right mind, he began to think, even the servants on my father's property live better than I'm living. So he returns to truth. Maybe, dear friend, you're listening to this, and you need to recognize that your life, independent from God, is not going as you had hoped. That the things that you have pursued have only left you like sand through your fingers. My encouragement to you is to consider seriously those two questions. Is it true that you don't really want or need God? And then the second question, which will also be answered in a moment, have you gone too far in your reckless living, in your sinful rebellion, that God will no longer have you? Well, the first is the one that this rebellious son wrestles with in the pig slop. And he recognizes that I have to make a change. I have to return to truth and acknowledge that in my Father's house, in my Father's presence, life was better than I have it now. Maybe you've never explored the reality of Christ and the cross. Maybe you've never considered that you are sinful and separated from God, but that you can be reconciled through forgiveness. I'm positing that to you now if you are of rebellious heart against your Creator. You do need Him, and your life is in some form or another in lack. and eventually it will be in the pig pen. He returns to truth. He returns to humility. He recognizes that instead of the give me attitude, he's going to come on bended knee. He's going to acknowledge that he has disrespected his father. He has broken his father's law, his rules, his heart, his relationship, and he's going to be asking for forgiveness. He returns to mercy. He's not going to say, hey, I'm deserving of this. He's going to say, if you could just make me one of your hired servants, that would be good enough for me. He's going to return to grace. He's going to get undeserved favor. As the story we shared last week to highlight the father's humble heart, the father's actually expectantly waiting for his son to return. And when he sees him on the long walk, he runs to meet him, and he kisses his neck, and he gives a ring of authority on his finger and a best robe. He receives undeserved favor. He returns to restoration. His father welcomes him into the family immediately, and he returns to a reconciled relationship with the father. He is not treated as just a hired servant, but as a restored son. So the answer to the question is, do you need God? Yes. You were created by him and for him. And if you're living in rebellion against him, you're living in a sinful separation that ultimately will just end in death and separation eternally from him. If you're concerned that you've gone too far, you recognize your sin, you recognize kind of the pig pen of your circumstances, the lack, the constraint, the shameful misery, but you're wondering if there's any hope for you to return, the answer is yes. The Father is expectantly waiting for you, and the rebellious son can return home. I started this brief few minutes together saying that I was tugging on a duffel bag on the Salem lawn at 15, and now I'm having lunch with my father regularly, and he's picking up his grandkids from school, and we have a reconciled relationship because I returned first to God through Jesus, and second to my earthly father. So until next time, friends, remember, hope is a person. His name is Jesus. If you learn to place your hope in him, you will never be hopeless again. You are wanted by Jesus.